keywords in social media is very much driven by topics. So think about the topics that people are interested in. People actually do search for communities on social media. So there are a whole host of YouTube channels that are devoted to strategies to win in court, or going against your neighbor, or fighting it out around property rights. There are a whole host of different issues that will be of interest to your people that relate to how you help them in legal services. But you have to think about how they are searching for it. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Crushing Chaos with Law Firm Mentor podcast, where on today's show, we are going to be talking about your social media strategy. So this is one of these topics that comes up oftentimes when we are in our LFM community. So shout out to the community. You guys are always bringing us hot topics and these issues that we know that as law firm owners, we have to master in order to not only create growth in our companies, but also to sustain growth. And so social media is one of these areas that people are oftentimes trying to figure out, right? We're always tinkering with which platforms and what to say and whether or not our posting is getting us what we want. And I think a lot of law firm owners feel that if they know they need to be on social media, and they think that if they just hang out there and make sure that they're being consistent in posting, that it is going to eventually increase your brand awareness. And I also think a lot of people are under the misapprehension that you cannot truly measure what's happening on social media, because a lot of people will see you there, but not take action there. They might see you there, become familiar with you there, but then head over to Google or ChatGPT or even direct to your website in order to connect with you. So a lot of people just feel like it's one of those things that you have to do, but you don't really know what to do. You're just kind of staying the course and throwing it out there and seeing what sticks. So today we want to actually give you some key takeaways that you need to implement today in your social media strategy that actually is going to get you quantitatively measurable results in a way that you can use. All right. So the first thing, and we're going to go over 5 key strategies that you have to master if you really want to up-level your social media strategy. So the first thing that we have to talk about is to end the random posting, right? There are a lot of law firm owners that believe that if you just start posting, post anything, post about your wins, post about your firm growing, post about your office relocation, you will ultimately get eyes on your content. And that is just not the case. Social media very much functions on algorithms the same way that search engines do, right? We very much have to game the system, but there is a game to be played in social media. And with each platform, there are some top tips, if you will, in terms of how to get eyes on your content. But the first thing that you have to keep in mind is that social media very much rewards engagement, right? It is not just that you are posting, it's that people are attracted to and interested in what you're posting. So you really want to get people to talk to you whenever you are posting. That means you want to have a strategy around your engagement, and that oftentimes can be through collaborative approaches, right? There are a lot of companies that make a habit of all of their clients are in a well, and the different clients that they have will post on the content of other clients so that functionally you create engagement. Now, there are ways that you can do this even if you're not using a social media company for your marketing in that area. You can simply collaborate with other law firms in your area that each of you is going to comment upon and engage with the content of each other. It takes more time to do it that way, right? Most of us are not in the full-time business of social media marketing. We're actually practicing law. So you might not necessarily want to do it that way. You might want to do that with local business owners that have related companies that are in your market, but there are ways to establish it in an organic reach. But it's really important that you not just be randomly posting. You also want to think about the idea that when you are randomly posting, you are essentially shouting into the void, right? People are going to eventually find out that there might be something there of value to them, but they are not going to necessarily see that from today's random post. It's kind of a crapshoot, right? It might be that someone happens upon your content that needs it today, Or it might be that what you posted today is completely irrelevant to them, so they're going to scroll on. So you have to think about it from the perspective of how can I get people to actually do something with the post rather than just see the post. And the best way to do that is to ask questions, right? If you are trying to boost engagement, you want to ask questions because the mind, in response to a question, instinctually desires to answer. By the way, that is one of the reasons why the Miranda warnings are very ineffective, right? You have the right to remain silent. Now, where were you last Tuesday, right? As soon as that where were you last Tuesday comes up, your mind says, oh, I was at such and such place, right? Now, some people, having heard you have a right to remain silent, actually recognize that they need to. Many people do not, right? That's why criminal defense lawyers are still in business. But just keep in mind, you want people to talk to you, and that oftentimes happens through questions. All right. Strategy number 2 is that you have to master keywords on social media platforms the same way you do with search engine optimization. So when you think about keywords, I want you to think about it a little bit differently than when you are just thinking about a search engine. For instance, on your website, you might have a whole bunch of headlines and a whole bunch of phrases like divorce lawyer in Seattle, or criminal defense lawyer in Utah, or Massachusetts DUI lawyer, right? You might be pairing your location together with your type of practice because that has kind of been, for many years, the Polestar best practice in order to get as much opportunity for Google to see you as relevant to a geographic location and a practice area when someone is searching near your law firm. But at the same time, just putting in those phrases on your website has a different impact on social media because most people, when they are on social media, are not there for searching for their divorce lawyer or their real estate lawyer or their personal injury lawyer, right? They're there for hanging out with their friends, seeing what you ate at the beach over the weekend, seeing little Timmy graduate from high school, right? Those are the things that they're interested in. So you do want to think about keywords, but not in exactly the same way. Keywords in social media is very much driven by topics. So think about the topics that people are interested in. People actually do search for communities on social media. So, there are a whole host of YouTube channels that are devoted to strategies to win in court, or going against your neighbor, or fighting it out around property rights, right? There are a whole host of different issues that will be of interest to your people that relate to how you help them in legal services. But you have to think about how they are searching for it. And then you want to put your content into that sphere, right? Those topics that are of interest. So think about the FAQs. If you record FAQs, frequently asked question videos, what might you put in the description of that video that can draw eyes, right? That can get people saying, oh, yes, I want to learn about this. Or if they happen upon it, oh, yeah, I can use that. Let me click and see what that's about. Okay. Strategy number 3 is that you very much want to learn from your competitors. Now, in all areas of marketing, you want to have an idea of what your competitors are doing, but that doesn't mean you want to be a slave to what your competitors are doing. It means that you want to be aware of, generally speaking, how they are boosting engagement. Again, because engagement is the name of the game on social media. So if you think about it, you want to look at the people who are doing well in this area on this particular platform relative to your practice area. That does not mean that you have the same competitor on a search engine as you have in social media. In fact, a lot of smaller firms got their start on social media. And a lot of younger practitioners, and no offense to those of us that are a little bit more seasoned in the practice, but when I say younger, I'm talking about younger both in years on earth as well as in practice. A lot of them will find their footing on social media. And so if you think about it, that is a place where you can actually see what people are doing and who's getting attention from what they're doing. The largest firm in your geographical area might be spending the most money to get pay-per-click advertising opportunity, but you may think, I don't have that kind of budget. How can I possibly compete with that? Well, maybe the answer is that's not how you compete. maybe the way that you grow is on social media. And so it might be the small law firm right down the hallway that is doing the most to get the most attention there, right? They are tagging people. They are posting about common issues. They are taking what is in the zeitgeist, what people are talking about on Reddit and what people are talking about, on Instagram or on Threads. And they're taking those common topics that are in the public sphere and converting it over to whatever is relevant in their practice area. Drawing those connections are a way to get people who are generally interested in a topic talking to you, even if the people who are talking to you cannot necessarily be served by your practice area. You might have a state-specific practice area, and you might be talking about a national topic. But if that national topic gets you to be seen as an authority in your practice area, and people are interested in what you have to say about this area of the law, that goes to show that you're going to be able to get them to engage a little bit more than somebody who might be the most brilliant practitioner in your practice area in your state, but that nobody knows about from other states, right? So there are ways to, again, game the system, but you're very much here talking about what people are doing that are competing in your practice area, in your region, with their social media platform. Okay, so it's not just that they're your competitor for purpose of being in your region, in your practice area. It's in your region, in your practice area, and active on social media. All right, strategy number 4 is you want to think about measuring what matters the most. Okay, now, of course, we always talk about tracking being the name of the game when you are doing anything in the world of marketing, because what gets measured gets managed, and what gets managed gets dollars and cents. Okay. So you want to very much have a strategy for managing, but most importantly, and at the start, tracking what you are doing on social media. So how do we do that? Well, likes and shares is what a lot of people think about as what I should be looking at. How many people like my content, love my content, care about my content, right? Or even get angry at my content, right? Sometimes people say that rage bait that is put out has no purpose, but a lot of times people do rage bait very effectively in social media because more reaction gets more attention, and more attention can be valuable. But here's the problem. It doesn't stop at getting attention. You have to do something with that, and that's where we start talking again about engagement. So how do you ultimately measure in social media? Well, the things that you want to be thinking about are not just the likes, but the shares. Sharing is a higher form of social media currency than liking. But you also want to think about the saves and the click-throughs, right? What are people doing with the content? Are they keeping it to read later? To an algorithm that sees that a piece of content got 500 likes, that is going to be far less valuable than a piece of content that got only 100 likes, but then was saved by another 50 people and actually had clicks on the content. Maybe you had another 25 clicks on the content, because an algorithm is going to be saying, if I am trying to serve up, if I'm trying to keep people on my platform, right? Think about what the social media engine is trying to do. It's trying to keep people on the platform so that whomever is going to be buying access, and that's what people do when they buy advertising on the platform, and also what large corporations do when they put their time, energy, money, and investment into a platform, right? You want to have the audience. We, the consumers of social media, are the product that's being sold, right? So we want to show that there's a lot of product, a lot of people doing something with this content. If I'm saving the content to use later, if I'm clicking through the content to go wherever someone is taking me, I'm going to deem it of higher value. And so an algorithm is going to want to show me, the product, far more of that type of content than something that I just like or something that I scroll by altogether, right? So again, you want to start measuring what action is taken upon the content and taking a look at, comparatively speaking, of all the things that you post, what gets the most traction there? Are you more likely to get a click through when you post a celebration, a client victory that had some significance for your client, but also for your practice, maybe for the practice in general? Or are you more likely to get traction, activity, engagement from something that might be completely outside of your wheelhouse, but that is a sexy topic or something that is discussed in the local media, right? You have to try and test to be able to get to what is going to work. And you might have to do the same thing over and over again in different iterations in order to get there. And that, of course, brings me to strategy number 5, which is I want you to go from winging it to working it. Okay. What do I mean by that? That means that you need to have a data-driven approach to your social media. Okay. You need to be testing and measuring and refining as you go. Testing very simply means try it one way and then change one variable and get to a different way. Okay. One variable. That does not mean that you can't try out various different variables, but when you are testing, you are only going to test one piece of content against the same exact piece of content posted in the exact same way at the exact same time with one slight variable. Maybe that variable that you change is the time of day that you post. Maybe the variable that you change is the color of the graphic, right? Maybe it is the font size. But you don't want to change a host of different things because the more you change, the harder it is to know whether or not whether or not a piece of marketing is more attractive based on variable number 1, variable number 2, variable number 3. You don't know because you changed them all at once. Okay. So you want to change one thing at a time. And then you want to, over time, figure out which content types are most effective for you. It could be video, right? It could be testimonials. It could be case studies. It might be different based on your practice area, but also based on your ideal client avatar, right? Because depending on who you're serving, different types of content are going to appeal to them. There are some demographics out there about who likes video versus who is more compelled by testimonials. And by the way, with testimonials, you also want to be thinking about variations of those, right? So if you're going to change a variable, maybe you have a splatter pattern testimonial social media posts that go out. But then perhaps what you do is you change the quality. And by quality, I don't mean good versus bad. I mean kind of the character of your testimonial, right? Because a testimonial video that says, oh my God, I'm so happy that I had this lawyer. They really helped me is very different than more of a saga story of, oh, I came in with this major problem and I was so distraught and I didn't know what to do. And then I found my hero, the lawyer who helped me, and now life is so much better, right? There are different types of messages and they appeal to different people in different ways. So you're going to have to test that. The other thing you want to think about is there are things that get attention and engagement and that are what I refer to as pulling on the heartstrings type content that may actually get you a lot of engagement, but not necessarily a lot of leads. So you want to not just boost engagement so that your content can be seen more, but you also want to have a strategy around lead generation. Now, some people use social media solely for branding, right? The idea is we need to be out there. People need to see us, need to hear about us so that when they see us, hear us, learn about us in other forms, for instance, in our pay-per-click campaigns or in the way that we're found on ChatGPT, when people start trying to verify that we are a good source for them, they will have at some point dropped a cookie on our page and then we can remarket them or retarget them. And they will happen upon that ad on a social media platform, right? So there's ways to use your social media posts that are not direct lead generation. But for most small law firms, most law firms in general, but particularly law firms that are under $5 million, you really want to think about not just getting people aware of you and thinking of you positively, but also taking action to become a client of your firm. All right, guys, today we have been talking about social media mastery and the strategies that you need to really up-level your social media game in 2025. I'm Allison Williams, host of the Crushing Chaos with Law Firm Mentor podcast, and I will see you on our next episode.